Welcome back, Winers. My name is Amanda Lopez, president here at Transform Consulting Group. I am so excited to be joined by one of my colleagues, and I will have Rose introduce herself here shortly. But today we're going to be talking about how to design your data and better visualize it. So it's the easiest way for your audience to grasp your information and meaning.
Yeah.
But before we dig into all of that, let's introduce ourselves. Rose, please tell our audience who you are, what you do here at TCG.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. I'm really excited to be back. And my name is Rose Johnson. I'm a senior project consultant with Transform Consulting Group and have the opportunity to especially support a lot of data analysis on our team and have a real passion for design as well, which is really merged with the data part because it's really important that we make our data visually pleasing for external audiences.
Yes, I think, Rose, you are somewhat of a unicorn because you like the hard technical data analysis, but then you have this background of marketing too. And so you also do a great job of that creative element to blend that visual side with the data for our clients and projects. So we're going to dig into all of that today. But before we jump into that, let's talk about what we're drinking today, Rose. So I'm excited. As you know, my family loves to go up to Lake Michigan. We have a lake place up there. And the summer over the 4th of July, we went up to the top of lake. So if you know the shape of Michigan, it's like a mitten. So up here at the top is Traverse City. And so we were up in that area in Petoskey. So this is from Old Mission Peninsula. And I don't even know if I can pronounce it, but a Burgundy Reserve. It's a Pinot Blanc.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, cheers, Rose.
Cheers. It's so good.
This is why I selected it.
It's perfect for like a hot day.
Yeah.
It's like so refreshing, so easy to drink.
This would be great with a cheese board.
Yes. Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah. So if you're at all interested in wine tasting, the whole state of Michigan, but especially this area of northern Michigan has so many beautiful wineries up there all along the coast. And so you can ride your bike, go along the coast of Lake Michigan, and it's a beautiful spot.
The best.
Yeah. So you and Josh will have to go up and do a road trip.
Oh, yes. I love it up there, especially this time of year in the fall. Beautiful.
All the leaves. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, let's bring it back here to talk about designing your data. So, it's an interesting topic because a lot of times nonprofits are collecting a ton of data, right? And they're turning out reports, they're turning out visuals. So it's not about, the problem isn't so much about like having visuals because people are visualizing their data. What would you say like the biggest challenge and problem is?
I think the challenge is creating visuals that are both aesthetically beautiful, that are nice to look at, right? Because I think often we find, unfortunately, even if you've got great data, if it's not formatted in a way that is maybe professional and draws in the eye and it's nice to look at, people won't always pay attention to it, which is really too bad because we want people to look at that information. But I think on the flip side of that, we also have to design it in a way that really prioritizes the information, right? I think oftentimes design can get in the way of understanding because we're adding a bunch of visuals and it can get overwhelming and actually make it harder to understand the information. So it's a real balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about, we're women, thinking about how we get dressed, right? And you add on accessories, right? And they're supposed to enhance your outfit.
Yes.
And that's what I think about visuals, right? If you're creating a report or an infographic one page or a dashboard, how do you add visual elements or use the right elements to enhance the data so it could be amplified and make it really easy for the audience?
Yeah. And I think really a good rule of thumb is to keep it simple, right?
100%.
To keep it simple and to include the least amount of stuff that we need to get the message across. So I think oftentimes that means eliminating lines where we don't need them on our graphs, right? Making sure that text is large enough to see, making sure that we don't have too many colors, really keeping things as simple as possible to get the message across is a really good rule of thumb.
Yeah, I agree. I think too, sometimes, we create a lot of data dashboards, which we love because dashboards can be a great way to pull a lot of information, allow you to do some filtering and interactiveness. but sometimes they can feel cluttered.
Yes.
There's this balance of like, we want all the information because we want to know so much, but then it can be almost overstimulating, for a participant to look at that dashboard or report. So I do like your idea and tip of keeping it simple, having it be less cluttered, I think is the big thing. And the other is just to, take a step back and again, kind of editing things. Like, do we need all of these visuals? Does it make sense to have a stacked bar graph? Does it make sense to have it in these colors? Are these colors the ones that are, best representing the information?
Yes.
The other one I think about is even the text, the labeling of the data and information in a visual. Is it clear, less jargony?
You want somebody who isn't familiar with the information to be able to tell at a glance what you're trying to communicate. That's a really good goal and a good test. If you're creating a new data visualization, share it with somebody who doesn't have the context and ensure that they can understand it.
Yep, absolutely. Because really our goal, and like you talked about earlier, we spend all this time collecting this data. And so we want whoever the end audience, the end user is of that report or that dashboard, you want it to be easy to understand. You want it to be digestible, right? You want them to make meaning. That's what data is supposed to bring, is to bring about insight and learning.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that makes this so difficult is, as you put it, most people either are comfortable with data and they're data people, or they're marketing and visual people, right? It's hard when you don't have both of those.
Right.
And I think particularly, for our data folks who maybe aren't as comfortable with design, there are a couple of rules of thumb, kind of guidelines that I really like that help me to design things in a way that it's easy to understand.
Yes.
One of those is contrast, just making sure you have a really good contrast, particularly between your background and the visuals that you're looking at, and that you keep colors to a minimum. I think sometimes we want to add a lot of colors and make it exciting, but that actually adds a lot of noise and makes it harder for our brains to understand what's going on. Yeah.
I agree. I think contrast is a really important one, and thinking thoughtfully about color. A lot of times we'll use our clients' brand colors. And so we'll ask them, do they have a dominant color within their color scheme, right? And so then that can be the one that you use to highlight or accentuate certain points or insights to be able to contrast in that way.
Exactly. And keeping to 2 or 3 colors on a single page is a good guideline for sure.
Sometimes too, we also use the stoplight color scheme, for contrast, right? And
easy to understand.
Tell listeners what the stoplight tends to mean.
Yeah, so we occasionally, we use stoplight colors. So green, yellow, red to indicate green is go, green is good, or something that's going really well. Yellow is kind of in the middle maybe, and red is, this isn't doing so well. We really need to maybe look at this area and improve. Yeah, so things like that are going to be really easy for an audience to understand, and already a frame of reference that they have can be really good to use.
Right. Yeah. Another guideline that we use is hierarchy.
Yes, absolutely. I think, when we look at a dashboard or a data report, we read it the same way we read a book. We look at what is in the upper part of the page and the upper left part of the page, especially first.
It's where people start.
It's where people start. And so you want to be thoughtful about where you're putting your most important information and put your most important information up top and kind of create a story for your viewer. And then, they read it like a page. So your next important information is to the right, kind of in that Z formation.
Right.
And bottom left and right. So you follow the reader's eye and draw them to what you really want them to see.
Right. I think about like the old newspapers, although it seems old, but they are kind of a dying breed, right? And what was above the fold was like the headline. So I know a lot of times for dashboards that we're building for an agency or community, we'll have a couple of key indicators at the top, right? That's like the high level. And then it's like unfolding with the supporting information.
Yeah, because you're building a story really, just like you would in a newspaper or if you're writing a book.
Yeah, and you want to take the audience on a journey. So how do you help tell that story through the visuals that you're using? Exactly. So a third guideline and tip is proximity and alignment.
Yeah. So I think these are really making sure that you have enough space and making sure that similar and related elements are put together, that they're in proximity. So if you have pieces of data that relate to one another, making sure that those are close together so the viewer can see that that's related information. Same with any context that you have. If you have a data note that gives a definition of what you're looking at, you want that close to the visual so people really understand, what they're looking at.
Yes, I love that. We can also use, bold headlines and titles and subtitles to help too. Exactly. We don't often think about the words as part of that data visual, but it's so important as well. So when you think about those groupings, what's maybe an overarching category that could be a section title related to those groupings, and to use language that's really easy and relatable.
Yes, and I think whenever possible, making that text really bold and easy to read and easy to understand, right? Because the context is just as important as that data visual. Your audience needs that context to understand the information that you're trying to share with them.
And how it's all connected. So we have to spell it out for them. We talk a lot about being explicit, right?
Yes.
And so we don't want them to assume that they get this meaning. We're going to tell them what that meaning is and what the insight is. And then that visual will complement that. So the fourth guideline is about ink ratio, which sounds kind of a technical jargony term. So let's tell our listeners what we mean.
It does. But I really like this term. It's the data to ink ratio, and keeping your data to ink ratio, as minimal as possible, which means really having the focus be on your data and having the least amount of ink or other stuff on your data visual as possible to get that data across. So often, as an example, I think about a line graph showing a trend over time. And those little gray lines that you have behind it that show, maybe the tick marks for the years or something along those lines. Often you don't really need those. People can see if that line is going up or down. They add visual noise and they make it harder for our eye to see what's important. And so I would challenge designers out there to start actually removing elements from your visuals and remove as much as you can to still get the message across. That's going to get you an easier to understand visual and a cleaner visual.
Right. Yeah. I think too, what's so hard, and you've kind of talked about this before, is a lot of times it's that data team member. So they live in this data day to day, right? And so they understand it, they're fluent in it. Yeah. But again, think about your audience. More than likely, the audience who's going to be, viewing a dashboard or viewing a report isn't a data person on the day to day, or at least with this amount of data and information. Yeah. So how do we keep it that's really accessible? Yes. So that everybody will be able to grasp the information. Exactly. Like that is the goal.
And I think, whenever possible, those cross-functional conversations and having a really good flow of communication with your data analyst and your marketing team or whoever is getting that message out there is really critical, so that you can have kind of that two-way. The data analyst knows what context is needed and the team knows kind of the technical side that the data analyst has.
Yeah. Okay, so to recap, we've talked about create contrast, hierarchy, proximity and alignment, and ink ratio as our 4 tips for helping to make sure your visuals are looking the best that they can, right? Exactly. Do you have any client projects that stand out to you, Rose? We don't have to name them, but where we were able to, maybe they already had data and visuals, but we were able to come in and help enhance them? Yeah. Or feedback that we received from a client after we did some enhancement and they were really like, okay, I get this now.
Yeah, that's a good question. One that comes to mind that I really get excited about is our work with Lutheran Services in America. We helped to visualize some of their data. And, before that visualization process, it was really just numbers on a page. And creating something that was visually nice to look at and had good contrast and was easy to understand and had the context really helped them to actually use that data to make decisions and make their program better, which I just thought was so exciting that we got to be part of that.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. I know we have some clients who actually come to us because they have reports either that they've created internally or with another partner. And they're like, they need to be enhanced. Yeah. They need to be zhuzhed up, because they're just not helping to tell that compelling story. And I think about today's nonprofits and all of the uncertainty with funding, now even more is an opportunity and a time to be compelling with your data.
Exactly.
And those visuals could really help go a long way in communicating the value to donors, funders, policymakers.
Exactly. You want the visual look of your information to enhance it rather than take away.
Yeah.
You've got great data to share. You've got great outcomes to share. Let your design help you to do that well.
Yes. Well, what's exciting, Rose, is there's a lot of really easy tools out there that are free or no low cost.
Yeah.
So what are some of like those go-to tools that if you're a listener, you're like, okay, I'd love to do that. I'm just not a data person, or I'm not a creative person. What do I do?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot of free tools out there, and I know we'll link some of those to this podcast, but a couple of examples that I really like. It seems simple, but honestly, PowerPoint has some great visualization. It does. And you know, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It's got some great built-in charts and graphs that you can use to visualize your data. Another one, if you've got some more complex data that I really like, is Plotly. It's free online, and I think it's a really good starter one for folks who don't have a lot of experience with data analysis or visualization. Makes it really easy to use. So those are two that I really love. And then, you know, also some free resources to ensure that our information is getting to all of our viewers. We really like tools like Color Oracle that helps to determine whether our data visualizations are accessible for those with color blindness. So tools like Color Oracle help you to test that for all the variations of color blindness to make sure that your visuals are really getting across to everyone.
Yes, I love that. Well, I know that we have shared a lot of tips and visuals, but what would be like one takeaway, Rose, for our listeners of what they could do to get started?
Yeah. So one takeaway that I have, if you don't take anything else from this episode, is keep it simple. When in doubt, keep it simple. The simpler your visual is, the easier usually that it's going to be to understand. And make sure that you don't have anything unnecessary there so that the information that you're trying to share really shines through.
Yes. Well, thanks, Rose. So please check our show notes, listeners. We will link all these different resources and recommendations we've talked about. We also have several blogs on our website with a lot of tips about visualizing your data. So we will link a couple of those, which reminds me, if you haven't yet, go to our website at transformconsultinggroup.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, which we only send out once a month, as well as you can see all the different resources that we've talked about. And if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to our podcast. If you liked what we talked about today, give us a 5-star rating. We would love that. Absolutely. Well, Rose, thank you for all that you do for our clients, for your love of data and making it visually pretty and exciting to see. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, Amanda.